welcome to our midweek connection. I am honored, of course, as always, to be with you. I'm thankful that you are here and that you consider this place a place that is valuable enough to return to. Yes, we're here virtual, but our connection is eternal, and it's of essence of the truth, and the truth that is constantly working in us, through us, and as us, unfolding all of the beauty and the power that we each one are. Every single one of us are loaded and coated with the divine presence. You are of source energy. You are of the same substance of the Creator, because you were created by the Creator to be creative. You are created by God as a God, and you are able to create like God does. And once we recognize that, we start to live our lives completely different. We start to take responsibility for our lives. Instead of reactivity to the world around us, we are responsible for the life that we've been given to live. And I'm grateful to serve, hopefully, each week, whether it's through the meditation in the mornings, this midweek connection, or the Sunday morning connection, or through First Unity Spiritual Campus and the services that we provide there. Hopefully you're getting reminded on a regular basis of who you really are, of your true powerful essence. And then you start to live from that. Instead of praying to God, you start to pray as God, from the God that's within you. You already are that. You're not separate from God. You are irrevocably and eternally connected to the all that is all. In fact, I read a quote just a little bit ago, and I'll pull this from, this is Swami Ramdas said, "The only thing a man must renounce if he wishes to attain the supreme truth is the notion of individuality, nothing else." In other words, if you can allow yourself to peel off and renounce the idea that you are individual, you will then lose that divisibility, and you'll move into indivisibility. So you'll know that you are connected to the one irrevocably and eternally, and then you start to act as source presence, because that's what you come from. And that also means that you're connected to all of life. You're connected to the trees, you're connected to the animals, you're connected to, I don't know, there are people who get weird about this. There's nothing weird about it. You're connected to it all. You breathe the same air. As they breathe out, you breathe in. As I've mentioned to you before, Deepak Chopra said years ago that more than likely every single person in this room, he was speaking to a room of folks, every single person in this room at some point in time, you've breathed in dust particles of Jesus Christ, dust particles of Siddhartha Gautama, dust particles of Krishna, dust particles of Muhammad, because these individuals lived on this planet, and dust to dust. And those particles, and 88% of the dust in your house is dead skin cells. So at some point, you've probably had within your body literally the physical essence of these individuals that I mentioned beforehand. Here's the thing that's more important than the temporary physical vessel. You are connected in consciousness to the all. I mentioned this last Sunday from the platform here, First Unity. I mentioned that when you tap into the universal mind, when you tap into the mind that is within you, and as the Apostle Paul said, let this mind be in you, which also was in Christ Jesus. When you tap into that mind, the greater mind, the universal mind as it's been called, when you tap into the universal mind, you tap into the library that's in that universal mind. And you can pull from the books and from the articles that are written by the Eternal One. You can pull your answers in life from that space. That same wisdom that was in Jesus Christ, the same wisdom that was in Siddhartha Gautama, known as Buddha, the same wisdom that's been in the ages, throughout the ages, and in the sages throughout time, that wisdom dwells within you. Sophia, she is the wisdom, guidance, the direction, the voice of the pure presence that's speaking in you. Most of the time speaking subtly, the still small voice. But if you'll listen, you'll hear. Your spirit will catch it. And when you start to operate knowing that that wisdom is within you, that that library is within you, you start to live as a walking testimony. As St. Paul said, be living epistles. The word epistle just means letters, or epistles is letters. Epistle is a letter, singular. Be a walking letter from God to the world. God has already written your story. You're written on the heart of God. There's nothing you can do to be separate from it. You can be separated in your own mind, but that's delusion, and that's illusion. It's not real. So I encourage us, being that we know this is true, and this resonates with your soul if you allow it. It may not resonate with your intellect because the intellect has been conditioned by a lower way of thinking. That's one of the things that we're doing here, endeavoring to do as One Love Consciousness Movement, is to consistently, constantly, on a regular basis, remind you of who you are so that these things become readily available to you. Now that I know I'm the pure presence of God and I practice that, now that I know I am a divine being walking around in human form, now that I know that my stillness and my peace and my joy and my happiness are not based on the outside world and all of the craziness that's in it, I'm able to be at peace. I'm able to be peace. I'm able to walk in love and walk in joy and consistently be manifesting that in my life. You can do the same thing because all of us are made of the same God stuff. Isn't that gorgeous? So imagine living your whole life that way, in every single moment, without question, without doubt. Imagine living your life without limitation or lack. Only abundance. Only health and well-being. Only prosperity. People say this is semantics, and I say no, it's the best system you can work on. It's the science of living life on your own terms. It's the science of living life as your divine self. Why not? If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But why not? Why not give it a shot? I can tell you that it's worked for me. And that's not even the message this evening. I'm excited. I don't know if you can tell that, but I'm excited about where we're at this time in history. And I'm excited and completely and totally sold on this message of freedom and truth as I share it with you here and now. Let's take just a moment before we get into this time together. I've shared principles that I live by. I said there were going to be 10 of them, and we shared them over the last 2 weeks. But I want to get into some more as I've allowed myself to think about these principles and these disciplines and these particular ingredients that I've worked with that work for me. I just want to share them with you. All I'm doing is chatting with you about the things that are working for me, what has happened to my renewed mind, and the consistent renewal of my mind. It's not something we do one time. It's ongoing. I was saved, I am saved, I will be saved. I was born again, I am born again, I will be born again. Consistently changing, going from glory to glory, strength to strength, faith to faith, here a little, there a little, climbing that ladder. I'm coming up on that beautiful side of the mountain, able to see more clearly, hear more clearly, live more clearly. My mind is being renewed regularly. It's wonderful, breathing in and breathing out, eating and then exiting, allowing myself to get to the place where I'm comfortable with letting go, with not needing to be in charge of anything, releasing all of my attachments to my personality, because I know that attachment to my personality is what's producing my personal reality. So I let go of those temporary things that I've been so attached to and identified with, and instead embrace the eternal. And as I do that, I'm able to become lighter. I move through this life just a little lighter. There's more light, there's more joy, there's more peace, more fulfillment, less competition and comparison, more contentment, and less incarceration. Because what I contemplate determines the content on my plate, and if you are what you eat, whatever's on your plate is going to influence the body of your life. And a steady diet of doubt, a steady diet of limitation and lack, a steady diet of negativity is going to create that in your life. It's not, there's no God mad at you. There's no devil after you. But the devil is in the details of what it is you're consuming. And that devil is not a personality. It's not a person. It is anything that is adverse to the unfolding of your true and authentic self. This is why we must be born again, fresh eyes, so that we can see the kingdom of God. This is self-realization, God-realization, self-actualization, and God-actualization. And when that shifting happens, the sifting takes place. And as the sifting happens, the only thing that's left is that which is permanent. And everything that is temporary, unstable, dying is removed. And you move into that eternal life. And so I'm going to invite us to get centered for just a few moments, to sit here in this space and open ourselves up to just a few principles that I'd like to share with you, a few thoughts that I'd like to share with you this evening. Spirit of truth, take from us what we don't need. Bring to us what we do. We are surrendered. We especially surrender our minds, our ways of thinking and the thoughts we're thinking. As we move into this time of some suggestions for ways of living and possible principles for our lives, may we be open, simply open. We don't have to buy into another belief system, but maybe there's some suggestions this evening we would be open to. Most importantly, may we always be open to the voice of your presence. Pure source, come forth. We invoke, we call forward this powerful essence that we are, to wash and to renew us, to recondition us, to renew our minds, as it says in the scriptures. That we be so that we would be transformed by the renewing of our mind rather than conformed to a previous way of thinking and being. And for all of this and more, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And so it is. And so it is. Some things I'd like to share with you this evening. Number one, I want to move through these suggested ways of thinking about your own life. And really thinking about how you're showing up in the world, how you're living your life, how fulfilled is your life. And look, if your life is complete and totally fulfilled as you sit now, then perfect. That's fantastic. I would never want to challenge that. But if it's not, if there's something that seems to be not quite what you want to see produced in your life, then I would ask you to consider some of these things. And one of the things that I was thinking about just earlier today was that everything in this life has a dharma. Now, I've used the term before, dharma, and I wanted to really go and make sure that I define dharma. Dharma is basically the behavior, it's a particular makeup of an organism. It's important for us to know that everything has a dharma and that we would learn to live by our dharma. And dharma is basically defined, it's a Sanskrit word. It's a word out of the East, and in English it's basically defined as the eternal and the inherently natural reality of something. In Hinduism, it's regarded as cosmic law. It's essentially the right behavior or the social order of something. So your dharma, what you are dharmified, if that's not a word, I just made it up. What you are dharmified to do is what comes most naturally to you. Give you an idea. Dogs, it's a part of their dharma, their inherent nature to bark. It just is. If a dog doesn't bark, we're concerned about its natural state. We would call it a deformity, or we would call it a disorder. You are naturally dharma'd in this life. You're naturally dharma'd to talk. Naturally, the normal, natural is to hear, to see, the senses, the five senses. Spiritual dharma is basically talking about your natural and inherent makeup. So it's important to know that everything has a dharma, and it's important to live by your dharma. How do I locate that? And this is what I believe about dharma, that your dharma is your calling, it is your purpose, it's the purpose that you have in this life. And so it's what you're therefore passionate about. What I'm doing right here, right now with you, I know is a part of my dharma in this life. I attempted to make it in the music business, but for some reason, I am a spiritual leader, P.S. I sing. Rather than for years I thought I'm a singer, musical artist, P.S. I speak or preach. I had the P.S. in the wrong place. I had the body of the letter in the wrong place. Once I put the body of the letter in its proper place and the P.S. in its proper place, then I was able to start really sensing and feeling the momentum and the movement of my dharma. What is your dharma in this life? Your dharma is your calling. Your dharma is your purpose. Learn to live by your dharma. Avoid living through the ego in comparison, in competition, and in fighting, trying to be right, identifying with what you do, with what you have is a dangerous thing. Your dharma, the essence, the source, essence and passion that you have, that's what you should live by. So instead of living by the ego, comparisons and competitions and fightings, instead live through your dharmic nature. Explore what your true purpose is on this planet. Be open to what the universe, what God, what source sends your way, and learn to be your authentic self. One of the things that people say to me, more than they say that was a good message or that was a good song, is that you seem so authentic. And it feels good to have people recognize that I'm living my inherent nature. That's really what authenticity is. Authenticity is not faking it till you make it. It's not faking that you're this, that, or the other. It's really just living in the rhythm of your natural state of being. I'm fulfilling my purpose and my calling, and this is why I show up as authentic rather than faking it. And there are people out there who can fake it well. See, I was faking it. I was faking it fairly well in the mortgage business. I was faking it fairly well when I thought that I might be into politics. I was faking it fairly well when I was attempting to do the music business as my letter, the body of my letter. I was faking it fairly well. But when I aligned myself with my true nature, my inherent, the nature that I inherited, basically the coding of myself, what I was coded and loaded to do, I started to fulfill my true purpose. And in doing that, the universe started responding. Because when you start to move your natural way, the universe starts to naturally unfold in front of you. It'll red carpet you, my friends. And this is one of the ways that I've found to live a principled life and a life of peace and stillness and love and joy. So find your dharma. Another important thing is to live and to show compassion. One of the things Dr. Wayne Dyer used to talk about all of the time was Dr. Wayne Dyer would teach us to see ourselves in everyone that we come in contact with. And this is what compassion, to compass and to recognize and actually not just sympathize, but empathize, because empathy means that you can sense, so you sense similar things. You're able to feel where other people are. And Dr. Wayne Dyer used to teach all the time about living and showing compassion. I've heard the Dalai Lama talk about the difference between love and compassion. That love is really kind of a word we've so overused. He prefers the word compassion. Basically says that that compassion is his religion. And it is that sense of empathy. I'm connected to you. It's the interconnectedness. I read about it just a moment ago. That probably the only thing we need to renounce is our notion of individuality. And this idea that we're islands unto ourselves and that we're separate from other people. Other people of different races, other people of different political viewpoints and agendas, other people of different religions, other people of different genders, other people of different lifestyles and ways of being, that we're some way separate from them. Ego works in separateness. Compassion works in unity. So when I recognize in others, I see myself in others that I come in contact with, then I am able to begin to live a life of compassion. Compassion should even be given to those that we perceive to be our enemies. Enemies ultimately only want the same thing that we really want. They want to be at peace. Even people who seem to be your enemies. All of us want the same thing. We want to be at peace. Recognizing this connection can induce a real sense of compassion, even for those that you don't like, as I've mentioned to you before. Jesus said, what does it profit someone to gain the whole world and lose their own soul? And the word soul there is suke, which means mind, essentially. What does it profit someone to gain the whole world and lose their own soul? And he goes on and talks about, what credit is it to you if you love those who only love you? What have you gained if you only love those who love you, only like those who like you? The Tao says the Tao is kind to the kind and it is kind to the unkind because kindness is its nature. Living compassionate should have nothing to do with the other person's behavior or other people's behavior. Their behavior is none of my business. How someone else chooses to show up in the world is none of my business. How I choose to show up in the world is the most important for my life. On the same token, forgiveness leads us to a place of compassion. And we're going to have to really learn to activate and to get really fit with the forgiveness muscle if you want to find health and peace in your life. Being able to forgive. You must utilize that in the life that you live in order to have a healthy and a peaceful life filled with stillness, joy, happiness, peace. One of the ingredients for that kind of a life is forgiveness. In fact, Mark Twain used to said it this way, and it's a quote from Mark Twain. Forgiveness is the fragrance the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. I encourage you to consider really finding out what your dharma is, what lights your fire, what puts you here on purpose. I encourage you to really begin to exercise compassion by seeing yourself, seeing your connection, the interconnectedness between you and every individual you come in contact with, and forgiving those who have despitefully used you, who have harmed you, who have hurt your feelings. It doesn't mean that you go spend time with them. I don't mean that you necessarily get back into a relationship with them. When people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Believe them. But also remember this, that if you hold on to that, it's like holding on to a hot coal, planning to throw that coal at someone else, you get burned in the process. Don't hold unforgiveness within you because it will bring you into a place of toxicity. Forgiveness, John Paul Young told me this personally. He wrote the beautiful book, The Shack. Wonderful guy. I love him. He's a great human being. He said forgiveness. He said, John, forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It's taking your hands off of their throat, opening yourself up to hold blessings. Think about that. If you're busy choking that person out metaphorically, you don't have room in your life to gather in the blessings for your own life. So through forgiveness and through unity, seeing ourselves in oneness with other people, we find ourselves in a life of compassion. And then here's the third thing I want to point out this evening. This is something that I encourage on a regular basis, but I've decided to kind of put these down into systems so that they can be available for any time you want to watch through these. I may put these into a series. I think these are, to me, have been life-changing personal disciplines that I've chosen. Number 3, and it's not number 3, it could be number 1. It's not number 3 necessarily because it's in a particular order. But number 3 that I want to share with you this evening is find your strength in curiosity and flexibility. I have talked to you about flexibility so much you may be tired of hearing it. But there's an old quote, and I think it was Krishna Jitamurti who said this. Blessed are the flexible, for they are not easily broken. In the Tao, it talks about coming into the world. As babies, we come in agile, we come here fluid, we come here with a suppleness and an agility, and in death, we are rigid. It doesn't have to be that way. It just, the Tao simply says it's that way. So it's in your flexibility and in your curiosity and having a beginner's mind that you will not be so easily broken by things that present themselves to you and that are different. One of the reasons that we get conned by our previous concepts instead of conceiving a new way of being is I go back to something that Bishop Pearson said to Dr. Michael Beckwith the last time Dr. Beckwith spoke to him. The last words he spoke to Dr. Beckwith were these: most people when they get a new thought try to shove that new thought into an old paradigm to make it fit instead of allowing that thought to expand them. I want you to think about that for your own self. Ask yourself, whenever you're experiencing a sense of stress or anxiety or emotional and mental pain, ask yourself, in this moment, am I being flexible? Because your strength is found in your flexibility, your curiosity. Your strength is really found in your ability to bend with, and I don't mean that you just buy everything that's said to you. That's not what I'm saying. But it takes a tremendous amount of courage to challenge your own belief when you face someone else's belief that's adverse to yours. Do you have the courage to look at something new? Do you have the courage to read the Bible new, to read the Bhagavad Gita new, to read the sutras or the Quran? Do you have the courage to face your own theological and doctrinal religious beliefs with a new mind? If you don't, ask yourself what it is. What kind of fear is in me? Well, I don't have fear. I just believe what I believe. And if you don't stand up for what you believe in, you'll fall for anything. That's fear. That's fear. Because you don't have to hold tightly to something you really believe. Because something you really believe, actually you live in knowledge, conscientia, to do with knowledge. You live in consciousness. So you don't have to hold on to the belief because it's a part of you. There's nothing to actually believe. It's either true and you live it or it's not. So this is one of the reasons you don't have to be attached to belief. So I'm encouraging you to find your strength in curiosity and inflexibility. Flexibility over rigidity. There's really nothing else to say. Flexibility is more important than rigidity. So be mindful as you're moving through this life. Listen, this can occur. This can show up in your arguments with spouse, partner. This can show up in your arguments or frustration with your children, with your siblings, with your family members, with people on the job. This inflexibility can show up in a lot of things. And where is it that I'm being inflexible? The one who is flexible experiences less discomfort. So maybe I could encourage you into some mental and emotional yoga to stretch, to find your flexibility. And yes, of course, there are some things that can push you so hard that you would snap. There's only a certain level of flexibility, of course. Even the palm tree that lays down while the winds blow and stands back up when the winds are gone. Even that palm tree, if somebody walks over to it with a bulldozer and bulldozes over it or cuts it up by its roots, of course it could be destroyed. I'm not encouraging you at all to just believe everything that comes down the pipeline. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying be flexible, courageous, curious enough to open your mind up, to open your heart up to the possibilities of something fresh and something new. Have a beginner's mind. Children are curious. That's why they learn so readily. The older we get, the less curious we tend to be, and that's why it's so hard to teach an old dog a new trick. That's not a truth. It's a saying. It may be a fact, but it's not the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is the one who acts like water. 3/4 of the planet is water. 3/4 of you is the water. And water is flexible, fluid, curious, capable. It can be poured into a container that looks like this and take its shape, or poured into a container that looks like this and take its shape without complaint. The same is true for you. Flexibility. So, once again, in summation, remember that everything has a dharma. Start living your dharma. Live your purpose. Don't let anything keep you from doing that, especially a job. If the job is killing you, then the career is killing you, then maybe it's not a part of your dharma. Can you imagine a bird spending its whole life grounded because it's unaware of its wings when it's built naturally to fly? Make sure you're not a grounded bird where you are when you were meant to fly. And number 2, show compassion. Because you find that you're connected to everyone you come in contact with, and you've learned to forgive those who have not treated you the way you should have been treated. And then learn to find your strength in curiosity and in flexibility, having that beginner's mind. Allow that to be a part of your life. This is good news. This is good news. All right, we're going to continue on next week. I have some more I want to share with you, just a little bit of a preview. I want to talk to you a little bit about the power of I am, about letting go of things, especially false ideas, and stop interfering with your own life, getting out of your own damn way. So, I encourage you to consider being a part of this each week. It's a blessing to me to be able to be here with you, and hopefully it's a blessing to you to be here. This evening, I want to encourage you to give in the offering. I want to encourage you to financially support. If this is a place where you come to have your spirit fed, or a place that you come to just confirm, maybe that's all you're doing, is that you're here and you already know this stuff. This just kind of confirms. But you enjoy eating at this restaurant. If you enjoy eating at this restaurant, consider making an exchange. Whether it's $1 or $5 or $10 or $1,000 or $1 million, whatever. It doesn't matter. If this is something that you believe is confirmation for you and for others of you, maybe it's life-changing, consider making that exchange. I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you for supporting. And I believe that you're going to this very evening, or at least this very week. I love you so much. I hear the music getting started. I will see you bright and early in the morning. Now go and make it a great evening, because you can. Peace.